Cab sims, impulse responses, and DIs. Oh my. Dustin here from Vintage King Audio, resident pedal geek, here to give you all a first listen to the new Strymon Iridium. Okay, so a quick little backstory, maybe a fan theory or two. I have reason to believe that Strymon has been working on this pedal for some time now. Their old company, Damage Control, made a couple of pedals that had a DI out. Their infamous Big Sky reverb pedal has the cab switch on the back, which essentially, if you wanted to go direct, if you were, going straight into your audio interface, if you were a praise and worship guy, didn't feel like bringing your amp to church every Sunday, you could just go direct into the front of house with that just by flipping that cab switch up. Sounded pretty amazing. I used to have a Big Sky. It was awesome. But once this pedal reached my inbox, the first thing that it triggered was a photo I saw a couple of years ago that Strymon posted on their social media, and it was of a decked out Strymon board, had all their pedals on there, and there was a blank white pedal that looked just like this. And obviously people reacted to it, they thought it was a teaser, and somebody from Strymon actually posted that it was an amp in a box prototype they had been working on. So needless to say, Strymon do have some experience with this sort of thing. So full transparency, I'm not here to give you a dissertation on how impulse responses work. There are plenty of excellent YouTube videos out there that go over that kind of thing. But what I will say is this. There's always that experience at band practice where your amp craps out and you're just like, well, I'll just plug directly into the PA. And it sounds fine at first, and then you click on your overdrive pedal and it has that like can of bees sound to it. This fixes that. If you had one of these, it would actually make it sound like an amp. Anytime you go into a flat response, like full range monitor, it's gonna have that sound. So super bare bones, very high level. All you need to know what an impulse response is doing is it's essentially taking a snapshot of the chemistry between a mic on your speaker cabinet. So it's getting those nuances and it's modeling it here in this pedal. Say you have a one-off fly gig across the country. You're not gonna ship your amp for one show. So you get your little pedal train mini, you put this on the end of it, and you go directly into the front of house. It sounds just like an amp. It behaves, it reacts just like your tube amp. And I would say for me personally, the biggest convenience of the Iridium is being able to record direct from my pedal board straight into my interface. And the reason being is, I don't know if you guys are like this, but I will spend so much time with mic placement. It's never a set it and forget it thing with me. If I want a more roomy sound, I'll move it back a little bit, and then it's just like, oh, it's a little too blown out sounding, or it's a little too airy, and then I'll get it back tighter, and I'll spend, before I know it, it's like I lost an hour of time just messing around with mic placement. And I forgot the riff that I came up with in the first place that I came to record. So with this, it's just instantaneous. All right, guys, so just a quick overview of the Iridium's feature set. A lot of these controls should look super familiar to you. Drive and level, I would think about this as like preamp control, master volume, 3-band EQ, bass, mids, treble, and then a room control, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Looking at our switches, we have amp and cabs. So looking at the amp side of it, we have round, chime, and punch. You could probably guess what those are. We got Fender, Vox, and Marshall. So dependent on where your amp is set, you move over to the cab setting here, and you have A, B, and C. So 3 different selections, 3 different speaker configurations, if you will, dependent on which amp that you're on. So let's just start with, let's do like a Fender-y sounding thing. So that's supposed to model like a vintage deluxe reverb. Super cool. Let's go to punch. So we'll run it a little clean first. Very plexi-ish. As I'm raising the drive, notice how the low end is kind of swelling up a little bit too. So I'm going to back that off a little bit here. Super cool. So let's go back to the room setting here. So room, I would just think about as actually placing your amp in a larger space, or perhaps like blending in the sound of a room mic. So it's going to soften your attack a little bit, give you a little bit more of like a natural sounding reverb, a lot more than like a reverb effect. So let's kind of check that out. And if we hold this down, this will bring us into secondary function, and we can actually adjust the size of the room. So green LED would be small, yellow would be medium, and then red would be a large room. So let's commit to that. Hear how much more reverberated it is. As opposed to... Cool. So moving on, Strymon have given us a favorite switch to save our favorite preset. So generous of them. I typically like 6L6, clean, Fender-y, Music Man-y pedal platforms. So naturally, that's kind of what I have saved in there. Similar to our first example. So this is kind of what I have. And now I'm going to put on the Origin Effects Revival Drive just so you can hear how using one of your favorite dirt pedals will go into the Iridium, using it as like a pedal platform. Okay, so I had to just rip that off my pedal board really quick so I can show you guys the back panel. Our input, which this little toggle switch indicates if we're receiving mono, stereo, or sum. So if you are running stereo into the pedal, but you want to sum it to mono, you have that option. Anytime you hear any delays or reverbs, etc., it'll be ran in stereo. So I have a couple of pedals toward the end of my chain that should hear some pretty nice stereo imaging. And then we have stereo outs, so I will be running those straight into my Apollo Twin interface. And then we have expression and MIDI control. I think you can save upwards of like 300 presets on this thing. So if you have like a disaster area controller or what have you, you can do that. So you can have all of your different amp models, saved for, whatever. I mean, you can like switch it up and have a different amp per song if you wanted to. Super cool. And then lastly, we have our USB port. And so what this is, say for example, you're not really so much into the Fender Marshall Vox thing. You're more of, say you're into like Silvertone, Supro Valco stuff, or say you're more of like a Dumble player. You can upload any IR into this pedal. So it's extremely customizable to your taste. We have our 1/8" headphone jack in the front of the pedal. This is super convenient if you're in a green room and you're just trying to practice a little bit before the show. It's perfect for that sort of thing. Again, like silent recording, you can do that. Really great, just little bonus feature that they threw on here. All right, so there you have it, the Strymon Iridium. If you have any other questions about the Iridium or any other Strymon products, feel free to hit us up at vintageking.com or reach out to your audio consultant.